Test, 1, 2, test.
You ready, Nestor? Waiting on the city clerk. She's lagging today. Okay, we're going to call our meeting to order. Y'all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Piper, would you give our invocation?
Yes, sir. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beauty of it. We thank you for creating this day for us where we can glorify you with our words and actions. God, we would ask that you would guide our decision making as we go through this meeting. Lord, we thank you for all the men and women that are abroad fighting for our freedom. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We have one quick item of business. The Kudzu Playhouse, who are a nonprofit, want to use the Gale Center for rehearsals May 16th, 17th, 19th, and July 8th, free of charge from 6 to 10. I think the Parks Department has already looked at our calendar, and those dates are available. So if we could approve the Kudzu Theater to practice.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Okay, next, y'all, as y'all know, everybody worked real hard to get the legislature to pass the pennies for the parks so our citizens could vote and exercise their right to decide if they wanted to do a penny for the park. So now we have more work to do, which is to come up with the projects that the board approves that we'll put on the ballot to be voted on sometime in November. We'll have to set a date for that later. But this is the first step in that. I truly want this to be a working meeting to talk about how we're going to move forward to improve our parks. At some point, I'm sure we're going to get up from back here and walk over there to look at the maps closer and really interact on this. This is a discussion that I think will lead to a change in Hernando and the way we do parks and the facilities we have. So it's an important conversation. I want to make sure everyone is heard. Every citizen that wants to be heard can be heard. Obviously, every board member needs to be heard. And then we'll start making the sausage and figure which way we're going to go. So we're going to have the official presentation from Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for coming. I know this is a special called meeting, and so we really appreciate the opportunity to come before you, talk about some ideas that we've come up with, but really to seek your input. And so for those that I haven't maybe had a chance to meet, my name is Henry Minor. I'm with Kinley Horn, landscape architect, and a partner, Cameron Cooper, also a landscape architect. He and I have been doing this together for a little over 10 years, and but what's exciting about this project is I've never gotten to work on one this close to home. I've been here in Hernando for about 6 years, and as soon as I get done here, I'm headed to my son's baseball game out there at 7:20. So looking forward to that and looking forward to being here with y'all tonight. So what we wanted to do is kind of first start with just kind of an overview of where we've been and kind of how we got to this point, and also talk about next steps. And so this is, you know, while this is obviously a nice drawing and it looks really great, this is our initial concept. Right, and so this is by no means anything that's set in stone. This is a culmination of getting a lot of different input, looking at the 2012 and 2019 Parks Master Plans that were done, and looking at the public feedback that was given originally when the original master plan was done. Previously, I think it was 2007. Was that the version that was done? Or
2008.
2008. And Doug Thornton, who he had a conflict. He may be here a little bit late, but Doug was involved in that original master plan, and he's been working with us on this process as well. So from here, what we will do is we'll take your input and your feedback, make any modifications that we need to make, and we have another set of graphics and visualizations that we're going to be putting together that'll further kind of really make this come to life, some 3D graphics and models that kind of show what this is going to look like. So we don't want to start that process until we've talked to all of y'all, got your input, but kind of the end of this process is we'll have a really nice master plan with graphics and supporting images that we can roll out at a public meeting or something of that nature to really start to get some energy for what this park could become. So we're going to kind of give just a high-level overview of the plan. We've got some images here that what we refer to are character images, to where we can kind of point to things that we've designed and show you an image of this is kind of the quality and the aesthetic of what we feel like would be a really great fit here at Renaissance Park. So we'll do that. We'll kind of give this high-level introduction, and then we've got some more detailed handouts for you all where we'd really love for y'all to come down and let's talk, really detailed about what we've got shown here to hopefully get some really, specific feedback from y'all about what you like, what you don't like. We can kind of go from there. So whenever we started this process, the first thing that we always do is we get out on the site, we walk the property, we understand the existing conditions. And so, as you all know, there's a really large creek that runs along the south part of the site, and then there's also a creek that runs from north to south, right along the Williamsbrook subdivision. And there's drainage way here. This is where the former lagoons were. To kind of help get people oriented, this is the site of the pad, the dirt work that y'all already paid for and been done, where the animal shelter was originally intended to go. And so, when we look at the natural features of the site, the creek and the topography and the existing conditions really started to kind of form and shape where we place certain features. We really wanted to make sure that we were respecting what the land was giving us. Usually that's the cheapest way of doing things. And also it allows us to preserve certain elements of the site that are really unique and natural and that we want to make sure and highlight. So as I said, Doug Thornton was involved in this process. We've coordinated with Joe Frank on some utilities. Joe Frank provided a survey for us, and we've got topography information, utility information, and then understanding what kind of constraints we have from that. We also worked with Jared and his team to get some feedback about the sizes of some of the ball fields and the locations and what would really work well for, Hernando's park system, as well as thinking about, potential tournaments and things like that going on as well. So again, when we came out onto the property, what really became clear to us was that we'll kind of start from Highway 51 and work our way west. But as you come into the property, obviously there's been some existing improvements that have already been made. The skate park, which is kind of shown here, and the dog park really kind of are the main amenities there, with the addition of the walking loop that's there today. And so when we looked at it, we kind of looked at the park, or the park property, in really kind of like three different ways, three different areas. Which would be kind of the ball fields, softball, baseball in this area. We really thought about how can we preserve the natural beauty of this property in this northeastern part of the property, where there's the trails that are there today. Really some amazing views and scenery and wildlife out there. So we wanted to really, how can we keep that intact and get more people exposure to that? And then in this area, on kind of the southern part of the property, where it was already nice and flat, we really wanted to concentrate a lot of the improvements there, where typically you would have to do a lot of dirt work and flatten things out. Well, that's kind of already been done for us, so let's not make it harder than it has to be. Let's use what the land is giving us. And I think the one thing that we want to make sure and highlight is that while the previous Renaissance Park Master Plan really only looked at Renaissance Park and it's just that piece of it, which is about 75 acres. For the first time, we were able to look at the 75 acres plus the 50 acres, which is currently owned by the Saddle Club and the Rotary and the three different organizations there. So when we were able to add that 50 acres to the overall 75, a lot of things changed. There's a lot more space. We could fit in all the different elements that we saw in the different park studies that the people said that they wanted.
And I'm going to interrupt right here. The three clubs are meeting on May 24th to discuss amongst themselves basically how much money they would want for that. They're not giving it to us, but they're gonna discuss, they all want us to have it, all three clubs, and they're gonna meet on May 24th, and hopefully very soon come back to us and say, here's how we could structure it, but they want us to have it, so I wanted y'all to understand, that's why we're incorporating that into the drawings.
Well, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, that would
Sorry
be-
for the interruption,
No,
but I
please,
needed to
thank you.
clarify that.
I mean, that, you know, I understand there's
Years
a lot
in
of
the
decisions and discussions that have to be had with that, but adding that 50 acres really changes the ability for y'all to deliver just an unbelievable park for Hernando. So one of the other things that we wanted to make sure to highlight was in this master plan, the vehicular access, because I know that's an important part. And again, the 50 acres is, you know, the Saddle Club property provides another significant link there. So what we're proposing, obviously this is kind of the existing road that comes in off of 51. We would take that road in and then we would pull it around the existing lift station and that sewer infrastructure, trying to get it away from that to where it's not visually, we're not drawing anybody's attention to it, but then bringing that road all the way through and connecting it to Robertson Gin Road so that there's a clear access point through both properties, which will help with circulation, people getting in and out of the park. Additionally here, which is pretty close to where the existing access point is on Robertson Gin Road, we would have a loop road here that provides better access to the fields and parking areas that we're proposing. Additionally, we are, you know, while this does look like we're taking everything and making it new, where you see kind of this yellow line, it may be hard to see back there, but that yellow hatched area is representing existing trails. So we didn't want to come in and take out the things that y'all had already done, but we are adding to it. So today there's about 1.5 miles or so of trails. By the end of this master plan, it was all implemented, you'd have somewhere around 3 miles of trails. So that's kind of big picture how a lot of this fits together. But the road network, again, provides great access through the property to both Robinson Gin Road and Highway 51. And it also provides great access to all the different amenities that would come off of that. So what we really want to do now is kind of dive into different projects. And so what I mean by that is, we understand that to build this entire master plan at one time is probably going to be, you know, not feasible. And so what we've tried to do, and this is not in any particular order, and different projects can be, different elements can be moved to different portions, you know, however y'all want to phase it, but we've broken it down into kind of bite-sized pieces so that we can think about costs and how things could be phased, and we've outlined, you know, what's all included in that. So we've got some packets that we can hand out, but we'd love for y'all to come down and you know, get a little bit closer to the images and be able to see this stuff, if that would.
Y'all want to go down there where we can see it better and discuss around the table?
I think it'll help because you can see some of the existing conditions. For everybody in the audience who can't see the board, we'll have the same things that are up there that we're talking about. We'll kind of zoom in so y'all can see and follow along.
Nestor, does this mic work? I'm going to turn it on just so if there's comments and people can hear. It is on? Okay. Thank you.
So we've kind of got these oriented into different projects. We've got basically project A through E. So there's 5 different projects. So if you'll flip to, I think it's the 4th page, it'll look something like this. Okay. Go past all the images.
Let's see a page again.
Project A, it's I think on the 4th page.
Okay.
Here you go, yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. And I don't know, you know, I don't want to derail us, so if you pull me in if I'm doing it, but we talked about, you can see on this contour map, the existing conditions map, where these creeks are, kind of cutting the property up. You can also see this dirt road, this access road that comes into these existing lift stations. And so if you look at the plan, just so you guys understand, because I think sometimes a landscape architect walks into a room and people just think that we just draw pretty lines on pieces of paper, but a lot of this stuff is justified off of things that the city's already done or were existing on site. So this pad right here,
There's a trail going around here, right?
that's right, yeah, that's right. So, and a lot of that's existing, and we've got that shown in yellow on there, kind of where that is. This existing pad we're utilizing for a tennis shelter, and the way that the existing conditions of the site cut these pieces out happen to fall in line with the amount of space required for that amenity. So like this area here just happened to be big enough to fit 2 quads of baseball, whereas this section here south of the road happened to fit perfectly for a tennis facility and then basketball. So there's some rhyme and reason, I guess, to why things are where they are, although all that stuff could potentially change with y'all's input.
From an elevation standpoint, everything that we're looking at here would be brand-new fields, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
Are we gonna build that up any to get rid of some of the water problems we have?
And are you referring to the existing sports complex?
Yes.
Yeah, so what we're showing here, I'm sorry, Jim, I'm gonna move this real quick. So the existing fields are here,
Yeah.
Doc, and so what we're showing is basically coming in, with the exception of the existing hockey rink, everything in here would be completely demolished and completely regraded, and we'd be starting over from zero.
Yeah. Where's the saddle club going?
Yeah, we can dive right into that. So the existing Saddle Club features are here. So you can see the rink. is right-
19.3 acres.
I'm sorry?
The 19.3 acres.
The new piece of property would be about 9.3, yes.
Okay.
So one of the things that jumped out at us when we were looking at the existing property is where the Saddle Club is located. It really cuts
This is
off
1911.
the use of all of this property here. And
I don't know
so
what that-
by taking the Saddle Club features and moving them to the front, where it'd be right along Robertson Road, it really opens up a much more efficient use of the property. And it also allows them to have direct access onto the road without having to get in and commingle with the baseball and everything that's going on. They would have their about a 9.3 acre parcel, Alderman Miller, to your point, right here in the corner with direct frontage right on Robertson Road.
And then we wouldn't have an easement, ingress egress situation with them, they would have their own spot totally.
So they have one drive that would go out Robertson Gym, and it doesn't, and that parking lot doesn't connect to any other part of the park.
It would not. It could potentially, but we felt like it would make more sense to separate those uses. They've got their own parking area, their own drive, their own everything.
Because the Saddle Club wants to keep their own land, and they want to have their own land, and they want to get enough money to build some cover over it, to have a
But
cover
they
area.
want to stay out there.
They do, yep.
Boy, it's
Now, they would go somewhere else, but I don't know if we could buy them land, or, that would be a whole, they would go somewhere else, but I don't know that we could be party to that without just paying the money to go away. And I don't think we would be able to pay them enough, because they would want enough to buy the land and to cover it.
Well, I like having them close, having their own section over here, to their in and out, and they're not
Yeah.
going through all the ball fields and all that, to the very back.
And it
Property
really
that's
just
not
brings up
opened
more acreage, because if we left them where we are, all that stuff right between them and the pond is unusable.
Right.
But we'll be able to use it if they move up to the front.
right.
And not only use it, but really use it in a much more efficient manner. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So if the baseball setup stays as y'all propose, the demolition from the start of demolition to playing on the fields, like what is,
It's about a 2-year process.
okay.
But I think that's a great point, and what we talked about extensively is the other great thing about the fact that y'all have this property that butts up right next to our existing ball fields is they could be phased in a way that no one would ever miss a season.
Oh,
Because if you built these 2 quadplexes, so what these are, this is 8 fields, for basically U10, U8, U6, and T-ball can all play on these fields, which today they play on 5 fields. This is 8 fields, so it's more fields, more parking. So while this is being built, these fields can operate the way they are today. Once these get finished, if you wanted to, you could then tear these down and build these back to where then they're playing on these fields while these are getting built.
I think that's a very important thing.
Yeah,
To
and
do it in that order.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it might be helpful if we just jump into talking about that particular project.
Sure.
So, another interesting thing about these quads, they're 185, 185, the shorter fields here, which were shortened just because of constraints, and then 200-foot softball and baseball. So, the 200-foot fields can be used from T-ball all the way up to U10, and then T-ball through U8 on these smaller fields. So you're getting a lot more flexibility per field. So just with these 2 quads, I think you'd have more capacity, right, than your existing fields,
Yep.
which is 1 age group per field.
That's right.
So when you, potentially if you do these 2 quads and then you're demoing this, you have more capacity here than you do today. So in those particular age groups. So what we're proposing is a softball quad and a baseball quad. Like I said, flexible fields. These are sodded infield, not artificial turf, and we'll talk more about that in a second, and kind of what the options are there. We've got a play area within close proximity to where parents will be. So we try to keep the parent experience in the back of our mind too. What is easy for parents to do, especially parents with multiple kids and multiple divisions. And then parking. So you can see it's called Project A. The interesting thing about this particular project is it includes the road all the way to Highway 51, which kind of establishes a starting point for all these other facilities. But it's also, you get your first kind of batch of parking. This parking on the tennis center is also included as a part of Project A. And that gets you to about 50 spaces per field, which is about 10 more than what exists today. And what you'll see as we go through these other projects within the development is as we add more spaces, the field increases to a point where you have 60 parks per field. And so one of the things we're trying to be mindful of in an overall sense is parking distribution, to where it doesn't feel like at any point you're in a giant parking lot. We kind of move these things, place them intentionally to where all the fields are being served, but you have good options should you need a backup option at any point with good connectivity between fields and parking areas.
So at full capacity, once this is fully developed, approximately how many vehicles will be there?
So the total number of parking spaces is about 960. And what that works out to, again, is about 60 parking spaces per field.
So, how many are out there now?
Yeah, today, it was 40, it's 450 today.
We're gonna double it.
Yes, sir.
Have we given any thought to what traffic is gonna do to Highway 51 and Robinson Gym Road as far as traffic flow?
Yeah, we have not done a traffic study personally. Our group has not to determine, would there need to be any type of modification on either one of those. I mean, I would think at a minimum on Highway 51, some type of acceleration or deceleration lane. But is this gonna trigger, an intersection to need a traffic signal? I have no idea but that's a great point. Yeah.
Question for you.
Please.
You talked a lot about softball and even tennis. Talk to me now about basketball and multi-purpose field, because this complex is more than just
Absolutely.
softball, and I hope that we don't lose sight of the other efforts.
Absolutely, yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump right in. And so, Alderman Miller, the way it works out is kind of this half of the property is dedicated to different uses. And then this half is dedicated to the ball fields and softball, which just need a lot of space, right? So as you're coming in, what we're envisioning that this could be one day is like a future community center that would also have space for the parks office to go, but could have an open room there that could be used for senior citizen activities, whatever it may be. And there could be a little outdoor patio space that would allow for indoor-outdoor functions. So that's, as you come in, that kind of anchors the entrance when you're coming in. We're accounting for the expanded skate park, the area there, and to kind of make that all feel like it was all intentionally designed from day one, we're putting this really nice oval walkway around it that's going to have accompanied by this kind of open lawn area that can be used for a lot of different events. But makes it feel like it's a real, intentionally designed park feature that fits within the master plan. As you come in past the skate park where it is today, we have 3 basketball courts shown, which we've got some images down there, Alderman Miller, of ways where you can paint those courts to really be, almost artistic in a way, to where they have a really fun color scheme. There would be, fencing along the backs of those to make sure to keep the balls from going out. But hopefully on the sides, we would leave those more open to where it feels, very a part of the rest of the park. And you'd have a dedicated parking area there. The flexible field that would be used for the alternative sports, whether it's football or even future lacrosse or things of that nature. We've got another exhibit in here showing how Milton Kirkendall Park could be improved to be able to host those. We do have here what we're calling a multi-use lawn. It could also be used for different sporting events and things of that nature. So this area here really has a lot of those, again, those features where typically you're having to clear a lot of land for them to be added because you need lots of flat space. And then right here, what we're proposing is kind of a tennis center that would have 2 3-pod tennis courts, as well as pickleball, which is something that's becoming really, in high demand from a lot of different age groups, especially more the senior group. And there would also be a dedicated parking area there and pavilion restrooms. We envision that this building could be built to where there would be bathrooms that could be accessed from the outside as well, so that would serve kind of the skate park and the basketball.
Okay, so if I was to talk, if you was to tell me today, based upon our existing facility, and with this conceptual plan we got, and the increase in, say, in softball and baseball, what percentage that increase, let me finish up. What percentage that increase would be? And then on tennis court, with the existing tennis courts we have now, with what's proposed, how much would that increase? Then we go to basketball. Based on what we have now, what's proposed, what percentage of increase in that? And then to multi-purpose field, what the increase in that be?
Okay.
Percentage-wise, of what we have now.
Sure. So on the basketball, correct me if I'm wrong, there's really just 1 court.
So go from 1 to 3.
1 to 3, so we'll.
So that's what percentage is that?
So, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
we go from 1 to 4, because we keep the one we've got.
That's true.
That's the increase though.
300% increase.
Okay?
So 3 times as many as there is today.
Tennis now,
Tennis, there's 4 today, and so
How
to
many
6. So I guess that's 1. Yeah, 1.2.
now that you, we're talking about courts, how many courts is that?
So this is
Go
six
from 4 to 10.
six
Go from
tennis
4 to
courts
10.
total.
The key about these though is having 6 together allows for
That's right.
tournaments, which we can't have with how they're spaced today.
That's right. They like them in pods of 3, and so 6 was kind of the minimum, I guess you could say, to have together, and so spatially that worked out well. So 6 tennis courts, where today we've got courts, so you'd have a total of 10. And then pickleball, there's none, and so that would be a brand new sport facility.
And so on your, if I'm not, unless I missed something, do you have a phasing plan that you suggesting?
Well, so what we've done here, we can walk through.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, so phasing, no, but how you break up the projects, we do have, what we can walk through right now is we have projects A, B, C, D, and E. And we have a price tag associated with those. And they're not in any particular order, but it would make sense from a standpoint of getting the infrastructure in and just being efficient to go ahead and build this road all the way up to about this point. And then at that point, you could do this project, or any one of these projects off of that road because you put in that infrastructure up front.
Roughly how far is it from that end point to Robertson Gym?
I can tell you about exactly.
Quarter of a mile?
It's that far, I think it's maybe. It's about 750 feet from there. Whereas from here all the way up, I think it's about 3,500 linear feet, so it's quite a bit different.
So on this field right here, could it possibly, instead of being 300, be 375? Or is it the all-purpose?
Well, we don't have enough room to, because we're bunched up against that. Yeah, so we're kind of just pinched there. And so this U15 field, and Jared, feel free to jump in, with it having basically the 375 there, we thought one, what we're calling kind of championship field for the older age group would be sufficient, just based on current numbers that really up to about what, U12, U10, after that really starts to tail off.
And there's a bit of a trend for, as they get older, they have a need for those 60, 90 high school, like legitimate baseball fields. There are communities that have kind of been pigeonholed because we haven't developed those fields as we have smaller fields. So it just increases opportunity for our leagues and to be able to, maybe there's a high school that it just increases our opportunities to house those fields. And you can also play, if you use portable mounds, you can play, put 70 and 80 foot base pads on it too.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking maybe have 2 of those fields instead of 1. We could, but you could always shorten it.
And you could do temporary fencing for purpose, like you said.
It's certainly something we could look at, if we needed another one. Natalie, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was saying, like, could this like shift a little bit? It wouldn't look.
Yeah, I mean, we could take it, this way. It starts to pinch into what we can do here. At first, we had more U8 fields here, and so it was smaller. But after talking to Jared, we really felt like this needed to be a quad for that U10, U12 age group, which made it just a little bit bigger.
This area here, the
Yeah.
disc golf, this is the kind of roll hilly
Yes.
part, right?
Yes.
So there's not really much.
Well, we can pull this board down here, it's kind of a little more front and central. I don't know how many of y'all have ever been out to Shelby Farms Park in Memphis, but they had some areas with a lot of topography. And one of the things that we see this area becoming today is actually utilizing that ridge to create some really interesting play areas. And so what this area here that's kind of hatched in orange and has this blue, we see that becoming just this incredible play area. Just to kind of give you like a sense of scale, that's about 400 feet by 200. So I mean, it's 80,000 square feet. I mean, that's 2 acres right there. We want to create a play area that all kids here in Hernando want to come and explore again and again and again. And so the images here kind of show how you can build slides into the hill. You can take, play areas and you can build things into the hillside and still leave the trees to where the trees start to kind of frame up the play spaces. So what this is kind of called in today's kind of recreational terms is natural play. And so we use the existing features, existing land, and we create spaces where kids really feel like they can explore and make their own play, to where it's not just a static play structure out there that you see at kind of your typical playground. And we'd also love to maybe even incorporate a little splash pad. I know sometimes those are things that cities don't want to maintain, but there's ways to do it to where it's less maintenance. It may cost a little bit more on the front end, but they're just, really great, attractors, and people love them.
Is that disc golf you got on there?
Yeah, so the disc golf, Cameron, maybe you can talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit,
so-
our thoughts about that.
We mentioned earlier, kind of one of the ideas was to keep this area somewhat natural and preserve some of that natural beauty. I'm not sure if on the packet, if there's a picture.
There it is, I'll hand it out.
Yeah, it's just a really, like this area in particular is just a really gorgeous area. There's views off of this ridge that kind of wraps the property here. And so, something that happened in COVID was a huge uptick in disc golf because it's one of the only things that you could do. And it's also affordable in terms of all the recreation that's on this page. It's the most affordable and has the least impact on like the natural environment. So, it's just clearing some fairways, putting in some baskets and tee pads, and then you're off. And so, DeSoto County has one of like the largest retail distributors of disc golf equipment, like in the southeast. And I know it's a massive sport in Horn Lake and North Memphis. So it seemed like
I mean, this is a picture of it today, just the field. I mean, this was taken last weekend. And, it's just beautiful. It's got, you see hawks flying across here. That's right, exactly. And so we want to preserve that. I mean, and there's a lot of history to this land too. And how do we get it to where people understand, what's been done here before, and Yep.
Back, you're good, you're good. Where are these at on the?
They're not, and so so another part of these is, it's for discussion as well. That's something that's not included in the concept, and something we want to get some feedback on. Really, anything in these images. There's something you don't like, something you do like, that's what we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think especially for the older age groups, try to have something like that.
Yep.
What are you pointing at over there?
Back
cages.
cages. Back cages, okay. I think it's in a W on the sides, they have them right there.
We did.
I mean, it's-
Yep, absolutely. And there are areas, there's a lot of green space where we can fit those in. One of the other things we wanted to make sure that we would have would be a nice, maintenance yard. And so here, out of sight, out of mind, tucked off in the corner, would be a building where, the maintenance crew could, there'd be a little, office, restroom there, air conditioned space, but also just places where they could park their, tractors and things, and this would be like a material yard. So that would be not exactly central, but it's pretty well located where they can get to everything pretty easily.
Looks good.
I know we've been talking about a lot of stuff, and Alderman Miller, to your point, I mean, I'd love to kind of walk through these different projects and kind of give y'all a sense about cost, and then y'all can kind of start, and y'all can kind of start to think about how would it make the most sense to phase
Now,
it.
we looked at Renaissance Park, and you mentioned that you had a plan to upgrade Kirkendall Park,
Yep.
so we have a multi-use field.
Yep, we can look at
I
that.
think you had a proposal in there to light another soccer field.
Yep,
Can you mention that part?
we can start there.
Okay.
So here's Kirkendall, and then it's at the very back of your packets. There's 2 pages that show what could be done to both of these to get them just to better serve the sport communities that are here. And so on Milton Kirkendall, it was really basically what the 2 costs that we included for the upgrades would be the red line that goes around. It would be just to put a really nice ornamental iron fence just to kind of dress that up. And just provide some separation as kids are out there, from the vehicular areas that are associated with it. And then to basically come in and do an overhaul of the existing field. Today there's a lot of drainage issues there. So, kind of a complete redo of the turf and getting the drainage right. So the fencing, what we came up with is a cost of somewhere around $165,000. And then the field upgrades themselves, based on some estimates that were, I think, given to the city previously, about a $300,000 upgrade to get that right.
And you probably need, I know that there's some lighting issues out there as well, like the big lights.
Okay.
And we've quoted those out since we've gotten in here. It was about $250,000, I think, from what I remember.
Yeah, we get 4 big lights out there.
Okay. So yes, you'd add on probably another, $250,000 onto that. So that would get this to where this is a really well utilized and really well programmed space to where people could use that for HIFA, whatever it might be, for that flexible field. Please.
does this address the parking lot there? It doesn't look like it does.
Yeah,
Is
we
that-
don't own the parking lot. The Board of Education owns the parking lot.
Really?
So we're just gonna have to,
Okay.
plead our case over there.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And we have,
Yeah.
It's causing some issues with some of the water flow too, because there's some holes and stuff
Mm.
there.
Okay. Interesting.
And we talked to the Board of Education about the upper field where we do some practicing. We lease it from them for $1 a year. We might need to check on that contract again. But we asked them to give it to us because one of the park's master plans showed tennis there. And the board said they're reserving it for future building, so they wouldn't give it to us. We can continue to practice there, but they think they're gonna do something with that property one day.
Anything else on Kirkendall? Okay, that makes sense. All right, so then the other one was we were looking at the soccer fields. And so currently, so if you flip one page behind the Kirkendall, or right in front of the Kirkendall exhibit. So today, the only fields that are lit are the ones that aren't enclosed by a little outline. And so that was phase one that's already been done. Bruce, you good? Can you keep going?
Yeah, no, you're good.
That's it, right.
And so what we did is we reached out to the lighting manufacturer, Musco, and said, all right, give us a quote, updated quote, for the next 3 phases, just breaking it out. And so the fields over here, which are the ones that are utilized for, U8 and U10, I think U6 here, those fields would be maybe phase 2. And so the cost to do that lighting is right around $1.4 million. And then phase 3 is just lighting this one big field, which I think is used for the U14 older age groups. And so that lighting is about $380,000. So you can see it's about, $400,000 to light basically one field.
You are going like LED.
This is the same lighting system that's out there today, which is Musco, which is the Cadillac of lighting. I mean, it's the best lighting system that's out there.
I think, Andrew, help me remember, when we put the lights out at the soccer fields, didn't we run some wiring to get to the others? I felt like we had discussed that. There may be wiring there.
I think there are at a pad there,
Yeah.
right around Dr. Cunningham Field, I believe.
Okay. We can do that research. We may have a little bit of infrastructure in there that might decrease that cost. We can do that research so we get better numbers.
Okay. And then the final field, phase 4, is the field down there at the furthest southern portion by the lift station, which was, again, about $340,000. So total to do all the lighting is just over $2 million.
And that's all for that's all we need to do to the soccer fields?
Well, we're working on the parking right now. Actually, they were pouring curbs today. They're about 3/4 of the way finished pouring the curbs for phase 1.
What's the original estimate on the light?
I don't remember. That's been like 7 years ago. I just don't know.
I would imagine that it's gone up.
Probably 750,000 or something.
Yeah.
this is based on the garage. This is based on the garage.
Anything else out?
I will.
I really think that, the fields are, Jared, I mean, if we're gonna put something else, I mean, other than parking, and we're talking about building a dumpster enclosure within budget next year, but what do you think we need out there?
So I'm getting quotes right now on improving the drainage. So there are ditches that wrap around the fields. The drainage for that is pretty non-existent. So water stays in those ditches, and the water from the fields can't drain off because that water pushes it all onto the field. So I'm getting quotes to improve that, take out the willows and trees that have encroached and basically cause it to be a wet area. So that will be an expense, and we could do it at the lighted pad and then also on the north side of the road. And so Magnolia and Craft Beer Field needed as well.
But I think the question was, other than the soccer fields that we've got there and the parking lot that we're phasing in, do we need anything else there besides lighting? I mean,
Any
it's,
other amenities?
Well, so what I was talking about, that improves the gameplay,
Yeah,
and it
sure.
improves rain-out situations. It's money that nobody really sees, but it makes a
Okay.
big impact.
Well, I've noticed that like some of the soccer complexes, they'll have like fencing to basically like have people enter and exit from like certain points, like strategically. So that way, you know, with traffic coming in and out, you don't just have like a million points where somebody can walk across and into the parking, but you have like more designated areas where people are going. You have two, within phase two, you'd have like two main entrance points or three main entrance points. So that when people are going from the parking lot to the field, there would be like crosswalks that lead to an entrance rather than it just being like kind of all over the place. But I didn't know if that was, is that like an old school way of doing it, or is that?
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it helps with a couple things, you know, depending on what type of fencing it is. It helps keep the balls in the
Which is another issue.
area. It helps, my, you know, 6-year-old not just run out to the parking lot, you know, I can get him. And it also, to your point, you know, you can concentrate where you're spending your money for drainage improvements, for sidewalks, instead of having to do it all the way along there to ensure that everybody can just walk across.
That phase four area, I don't think it's really utilized too often currently, right?
It used to be used a lot more in previous seasons. I don't know.
I don't know, is that the practice? I don't have.
Well, now
There's
There's
one
there's
down the back where they have like the practice wall. And
Right.
Yeah, we used to play some games down there at the very end, like the U6, but then they're pretty much all playing everything up there under the lights now.
Yeah, and I think that's why it would be phase four.
Yes.
And by phase four, our population would have grown, the program would have probably grown, and then we would use that area more.
Just getting phase two done would make an enormous difference.
Currently, we're renting portable lights like you see on MDOT, and renting those for practices to be held, sometimes games on Magnolia and Craft Beer Field.
So we're concentrating on Renaissance, Kirkendall, and soccer field, parks.
That's what we looked at.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that this board can't have different or better ideas to add to that or subtract from or whatever.
Those are the biggest like capital improvement areas.
Give you my sheets.
What would be most helpful? I know we've talked about a lot of stuff. We can go back to the packets and kind of walk project by project. That would be, you know, mixed up papers and all kinds of stuff.
I think the board is, and I are gonna need a little time to digest all this and read through it.
Okay.
The sheets, the individual sheets you've given us
Okay.
are
Does that
very
help?
helpful.
Okay.
And maybe we can all look at it and then come, I mean, obviously, we're gonna have more than one meeting.
Yes,
This
this is
is-
the first of many.
That's right. But I do like that we are having a meeting where this is the only focus, so the board is totally focused on this. And I kind of want to continue these meetings to be on their own.
Mr. Mayor, if we was, and we had a, you know, we had this benefactor that was giving us all this money,
Uh-huh.
what would it take to do this plan? I mean, you know what I'm saying? What would it take to do the plan?
The whole thing?
The whole plan, what would it take to do the plan?
Really like the bite-sized pieces a lot better.
Well, the reason I'm saying that, the reason I'm asking that question, I want them to hear what the big number is, so when we start breaking it down into pieces, they'll see we are making some strides and trying to reduce, you know, being good stewards, so what, yeah, you know.
So what we're initially coming up with is all of this, and let me tell you what it doesn't include. It does not include any of the South Club.
Okay.
Both would be on their own, and it does not include the skate park, because those funds, I believe, have already been granted.
Yeah, there's a grant being applied for on that.
So everything else that you see, what we're coming up with is right around $37 million. And, I mean, this, as you can see, that's a big number. This is a big park, 125 acres. I mean, if this was to be built the way that we know that it could be, it'd be nothing that would touch it in DeSoto County. With the exception of Snowden Grove and all of their fields, but everything else. We're not trying to compete with Snowden Grove, right? But as far as a park for everyone, like this one.
Yeah.
And far as projection, may I ask you for this? You probably had on number. For projection, we if the citizens were to approve the penny for parks, what did that look like per year? Just an estimate. I don't know it's just an
Okay.
estimate. What
So-
would the estimate look like?
So on restaurants only, which is what the state measures, it would be 500,000 a year. However, this board and the legislature we're going to propose this for all prepared foods, which would add all the convenience store foods, the delis at Kroger and Walmart, things of that nature. And the more I look at it, and the more I stand in line in the morning to get my biscuit at the corner store and
Sushi at Kroger.
the sushi at Kroger, and the people standing in line to get their crunchy chicken at the convenience stores, and I'm starting to think that those convenience store foods could be close to equal what the restaurants are. They're selling 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. And most restaurants aren't doing that. But to be conservative, I would say 750 or 800,000 a year is what prepared foods are going to bring us today on one penny. So it'll take a long time to get to 37 million.
So let's say we did the $12 million on that first, I think, baseball. What would the bond payment on that would be? Do we have any idea?
I don't know what that would be, but we will find an answer. Pam's going to write down a list of questions.
Do you think it's doable with that revenue we're going to have off? Excuse me.
Yeah, I do think, I think if we did a 20-year bond on 12 million, easily 800,000 would fund that. And get us phase one going.
But at the same token, do you think that, and this, I'm just speaking as on the other side of it, that would be only for one segment.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but Hernandez made up more than that, so they're gonna ask, when will this phase be in that I'm finna, do this, we asked to approve this, but it's gonna only be the first phase, that would be the Pennyfield Park, would be softball and baseball.
It would, but the other point that I would just bring up is you would be building this key piece of infrastructure here as part of that. This road, improving that all the way up to here, then allows, think of this as almost like these are like out parcels, and you're developing them off of the main road.
I was stating that not for the boards. Citizens are not gonna, infrastructure is not, they're not gonna get excited about infrastructure. Y'all correct?
Sure.
They really ain't. They're gonna get excited about what's gonna be there.
Tennis, basketball, and baseball fields, yeah.
Right.
So
It's gonna be a hard sell when we talk about infrastructure, putting infrastructure in. We know that it need to be there. I'm in agreement that it need to be there. But right now, we got to sell this to the citizen. At the end of the day, we got to show them and get them on board.
if you went from
That's my point. I mean, I'm just.
yes or no, I agree with you. And so if you know that 800 could cover a 12 million over 20,
And we'll get the total answer.
And all
but
that.
I feel like it would more than cover it.
and let's say it was 15 million over 20, and then that would do the Kirkendall improvements, the soccer lighting improvements, and then you would be covering more.
That's all I'm
Cover
saying.
more
We need
sports
to
potentially.
cover more than I think on this first. It needs to be more,
More than
something
maybe.
more, it needs to be added to it.
More than,
I'm not saying-
more
I
than
think-
Project A.
I'm not saying that
Yeah.
that's not a good project.
No, I agree, because I think people that are involved in all three of those areas are going to feel it, see it, and they're going to want to vote it back in 4 years to see the rest of it expand.
But that's that's all
Yeah.
the conversation for.
Yeah.
And I would say as we're, going through the discussions and negotiations over, Civic Center ball fields, if we are able to make that acquisition, there's some improvements we could make for the short term.
Just
for
within our
those future
regular
seasons,
budget.
just to alleviate some of the concerns that we've heard, for several years out there. So that's another piece that there is some, and, I think as everybody's thinking through this, and y'all may already have the answers to these kind of questions, but, and Alderman Wicker asked me kind of the same thing, as you're looking at these, additionally, what kind of head count increase would we have to think about? What kind of MRO, maintenance, repair, operation budget would facilities like this potentially need, that are going to be recurring expenses, that we'll need to think about as a general fund expenditure?
We have not gotten into that part. We
Right.
certainly can.
I know that's further down the road, but it's something to,
Well, I mean, it's a great point, because correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, the percentage of the parks can't go towards maintenance, right?
Yeah, the way our bill is written is it is for capital improvements only. It will only build these things, whichever things the board decides to put on the ballot for the citizens to vote on.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give you exact numbers, but I know, so it was FNC Park in Oxford, now I think it's in trade. Even that park, which is arguably one of the best run facilities in the state, typically operates in the red, where the city doesn't cover all of its costs from a maintenance standpoint. And so even in Oxford, they're having to, pull out the checkbook to cover some loot. I mean, that's a, I think, 16-field, 15-field complex. Jared, you have. And they've got last time I talked with Brad, runs it, I mean, they got 15 full-time people out there.
It's up there. It's about time. And then you have some part-timers that come in.
So it's certainly a significant investment. It's going to look, the best it's going to look is on day one. And if the maintenance, it's commitment to the maintenance and the staff and everything isn't there, it steadily gets scorched.
What other questions y'all have? Does anybody else have any questions or concerns or things to add? When do y'all want to do this again? Come back after you've digested it, so we can come back. I think what we need to do, whether it's tonight or in a week or whenever, we need to direct them as to which portions we like or which phases we may want to do first, because they're about to spend some time and money developing 3D renderings and things of that nature. So we need to make sure they go down the right road before they exhaust their time.
Am I the only one on the board concerned about the traffic that this is going to put on our, mainly Commerce Street? I know at 10 o'clock at night when these ball games are over, traffic through town isn't as bad, but at 6 o'clock, when people are getting off work and we got a tournament going on and people are trying to get to the fields, it's going to be my concern is it's going to be a real traffic nightmare. We're talking about putting a red light there at Oak Grove Road and 51, and that's not.
Roundabout now.
A roundabout. Roundabout might be better than a traffic light if this happens. But I just still, I love the flow of this. I love how it all fits and comes together. I'm just not real crazy about the location and getting people in and out of that particular location.
it will be definitely interesting to see how people utilize the 3 points of ingress and egress, and how many people use Highway 51 to travel back. I think people they're creatures of habit. They're going to continue to use Robertson Gin Road to get to everything.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to hit 51 at some point, though, Ben.
It's only 2 lane there, isn't it?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm closer other than that on the other end. I see it firsthand every day. It's terrible.
On Oak Grove.
And it ain't gonna get worse. And you talking about from college, Cather, 51, because the one that's done traveled the road enough, they'll hit College Street, then Cathy Street, then come to 51. And sometimes it's backed all the way back up to College Street. You can tell, like, how long game lasts, about an hour?
A little over.
You can tell when each game change. I mean, you can tell the traffic, the traffic tell you when the game just got over.
Are y'all suggesting we look at a different location?
No, I ain't talking about location, because.
I'm just saying we ought to keep that option open.
Yeah, I think now's the time if we're gonna look at.
I don't know where
Where you gonna get
another
125 acres
location
at?
would be.
I agree, but I just don't.
I think a lot of people would use 51 almost exclusively, just because, I mean, if you live on the east side of town, you could take a right and go across like Slocum or something and hit, you know, and go the back way and not
Right.
take Commerce.
I mean, I wouldn't be going Commerce, I'd be going Slocum and around.
But when we have tournaments, people are not gonna know about Slocum.
Well,
And
that's true.
the whole idea, when we started talking about upgrading our facilities, and if you look at those studies that were done for us, the whole idea was to turn this into a destination point. Not be another Snowden Grove, but to get Hernando on the map so that we get consideration as a destination point for tournaments. And as part of that, it was looking at what that would do to help our retail business, our hotels, our restaurants, and the additional revenues that those tournaments would bring to our city. So, I mean, all of that, regardless of where we put this, is still hopefully going to happen. But I just, where else can we put it? I don't know. We've had other people in conversations that we've had, talk about the potential of donating some property that could be used for a complex like this.
How many acres?
How
is Silicon
serious
Valley?
that conversation is, Mayor, I think you're probably the only one that knows, but
Actually, the donating of property, I think Alderman Wicker's been talking to somebody on that one, on the property itself.
well, the other thing is, do we need to have this nailed down before November, before this goes to a vote?
Oh, I think we need
Sure,
to have
right?
it nailed down in a couple of months,
Okay.
so the citizens can digest it and really think about it over the
In
summer.
order to
before they go.
present this and sell it, your point is right on. Because what happened in 2015, it failed because none of this legwork, as I'm told, this legwork that we're doing tonight wasn't done back then. There wasn't a presentation, there wasn't anything for our citizens to see about how the tax money would be used. And so, yes, to your point, we've got to make that happen. We need to have things that we flood the internet with so people can see what we're talking about doing. But again, coming back to location, I have heartburn over this location, folks. I want to see this develop. I want this bad for our city. And if that points back to this is where it has to go, then so be it. We'll deal with the traffic issues. I'm just voicing one person's opinion.
And the reason I brought up Robertson Gin Road is because I feel like if you could continue to park there and walk to the new facility, possibly to avoid traffic. I know that, I mean, we haven't looked at like some of those really smaller details there. And it may not be something everybody can do too, but.
Well, are we going to develop this for Hernando's residents and children only? And Ben, if that's the case, then yeah, people are going to know about Slocum Road and how to get around the traffic issues. But if we're going to start having tournaments to draw people into our city, those out-of-town visitors are not going to have a clue.
This is just my opinion. I feel like in the next, if we were to get moving on Project A with these two quads parking, that sort of thing, that would be specifically, and the priority would be to serve the community of Hernando. And that the tournament side of it would probably come much later once Project B and all these other ones are kind of realized. But I don't know, because I'm not a tournament director, but I would think you would need more fields than just the 8 that we would have.
Yeah, to host the primary function of these two quads, is mainly to serve the local recreational league.
Yeah.
But that's not to say, and Jared, please speak up if I'm saying anything wrong, with this number of fields, you can host a tournament. It's not going to be just a massive one. How many teams were you saying that San Antonio's got 6 fields that they utilize?
Two fields per age group, probably.
But how many teams? I think you said you knew the number of teams that Rob.
Oh, yeah, I don't have that number. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I don't have that number.
Well, I think, then to your point, once this is all built out, there's the ability to host larger ones. But initially, it would be focused on, the people who are enrolling, they're registering their kids to play local baseball and softball too.
If I may, to your point about the study, so I have a copy of it I keep around and have it highlighted. At the end, this is section 4, page 28, under suggestion for a potential new facility in Hernando. So this is from phase 1, which is more or less what we're talking about, should focus on the immediate needs of current outdoor sports venues. This phase is needed to improve deteriorating baseball facilities, create softball-only facilities, develop additional tennis courts, and increase the size of current soccer facilities. Phase 1 is building a new facility that should first satisfy and meet the needs of Hernando residents. Its secondary use should be to function as an attraction for out-of-town visitors to participate.
Henry, do y'all use some type of ratio for field to parking spots or whatever? Is that kind of standard there?
Yeah, so what we were looking at was trying to have 50 parking spaces per field. The study had a pretty wide range. I think it was like 60 to 80 or something like that. So we felt like that was a little overkill based on, again, we're not trying to compete with Snowden Grove. And we feel like, so today, there's about 40 spaces per field, so that would be a pretty good increase.
This cost estimate you've given us on the baseball fields, those are all grass, right?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. So artificial turf is obviously the hot commodity right now. Everybody wants it, and most of the new complexes that are going in are featuring the artificial turf. There's pros and cons to that. We can dive into it, but the base cost that you have in front of you for like this complex was, and the road, was about $12 million. And for each field that we wanted to change to artificial turf, it'd be about another $250,000.
That's just for a turf infield, right?
Turf, yeah, basically what this part of the field there, instead of having, you wouldn't have real dirt, you wouldn't have real grass there, that portion would be artificial, but then the outfield would still be sod.
Same thing Snowden just did.
That's right. And it's one of those things where if you don't put it in day one, you can easily retrofit it in the future. That's what FNC's done, kind of field by field each year. They've added another one. A lot of times we'll do kind of a split, half artificial, half real turf on the original, on the initial design, initial construction, and then phase them in later.
And the argument is, I guess, it helps with rain outs and maintenance is cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. Maintenance is cheaper in the long term. The only downside is the life cycle on it is about 10 years. And so at about the 10-year point, it's not a full, you're not, coming in and having to pay another $250 because the rock layer that's underneath it, that's for drainage, is, that's good. You're just having to replace the turf. But it is, long term, there are some operational maintenance costs associated with the artificial turf that you don't have with the real.
I got an answer back. I was wrong on our estimates of how much bond we could support.
So I'm texting with Nick Shore from Governmental Consultants to support a $15 million 20-year bond issue would take almost right at $1 million a year. So if we said it was $750 a year, I mean, obviously, as we get more restaurants and stuff, that number's our revenue will go up. But at $750 a year for a 20-year term, we could support a $9.8 million bond. So it would take $1 million to support a $15 million project, $1 million a year revenue.
So if all this were to come together at this location, to do the first part of it that we're talking about, Henry, when would we be able to play ball on those fields?
It's about 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, and so what that includes is all the engineering and architecture, Doug just walked in, to design everything, and then to put those plans out to bid, get a contractor on board, build everything, get the sod nice and established and ready to play.
Okay, and then from there, we move into the next phase,
And I would think that this would be a similar time frame.
another 2 years. So inside of 5 years to have that part of it done.
Yes, sir. I think that would be fair.
But I don't know if we could even afford that.
$1 million a year, so we estimated 750,000, so we'd have to come up with, I assume we're over here whispering.
But you don't do nothing
If
with-
we
you don't
were to
do
come
nothing
up with the
with the rest
seven,
of it, though.
I'm sorry?
You don't do nothing with the rest of it for 5 years.
Well,
But-
I meant that, yeah.
But
This
project-
is our phones are ringing with complaints about our ball fields.
Yeah,
So as we get into that part of it,
but,
that's 5 years of cost.
but the first phase, is what we're saying, Project A is 12 million, and Project B, the other fields, is 13 million, so we couldn't get to that
In 5 years.
till
You got to have some more money somewhere.
Yeah.
the 20 years
We'd
is
have to be
over.
subsidizing
And then-
outside the
Right?
penny.
Then you also got to remember also that you're gonna be buying land.
You're exactly right.
There's another
So,
cost factor.
so I mean, it's like a, it's like a one and
Huh?
done situation.
The Civic Center ball field.
The ball field.
Yes.
And another thing I think we have to consider is in 4 years, if voters could say, no, we're not doing this again, then we're stuck on the hook for, for those bond payments.
That doesn't include basketball.
Won't include nothing.
So, what we're talking about is Senatobia did, I think y'all did the Senatobia
Yeah,
fields,
I
didn't
was integral.
you? And that was, I'm told, around a $4.5 million project for what we see down there,
$5 million.
$5 million.
And they had a 2-cent tax that brought in last time. This was very early on, before the fields were built, somewhere between, $350,000 to $450,000 a year is what their tax.
And how many fields are down there?
So 6 new ball fields were built. They have 3 softball fields right beside their existing, and then we had 4 soccer and 2 football.
Okay. So the $5 million included the soccer and
Right, and the other part about it is that complex today would probably cost $7.5 million,
Probably.
maybe 8, just, it's unbelievable, how much construction costs have gone up, so.
So what we're kind of saying is if we did Project A, it would be baseball, softball only, and we really wouldn't have the means to do the rest of the projects funded by Pennies for the Parks for a long time. So someone mentioned if we did purchase the Civic Center and we maybe could do some sort of short-term improvements, we could maybe use some money to do other projects that would incorporate more people, like the splash pad. I mean, that's something I've heard a lot about. The tennis, the basketball, things like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised the cost of the baseball. That's like 75% of the overall something, right, isn't it?
It's a lot, and I mean, the other part about it is, right now, that's a
lot of dirt
whole,
work, probably, yeah.
and so
Yeah.
there's a lot of dirt work that's got to be done there.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you do own the property is significant. I mean, a lot of communities are having to go in and buy land, and so
On the property, yeah.
definitely understand your concerns, Alderman Harris, about access and traffic, but it is a pretty good spot to be in.
Well, initially, it wouldn't be any bigger of a problem than it is today initially.
That's right.
The problem is only going to come as we continue to grow the park. But
Right.
let me ask a question, Chad. Are you at liberty to discuss this location that's a possibility?
I don't think so, no.
No?
No.
At what point will you know something about it?
I think we'd have to probably formally approach the guy and see if he's still willing to do that. I mean, that was some time ago when I talked to him, so.
Are you, do you like the location?
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, at the time, he was suggesting that we put in some utilities there, to make his property worth more money in exchange for giving us and I don't think it was just for baseball. I mean, it was probably, that corner, probably maybe 45 acres or something like that, so it wouldn't be enough to do this whole project, I wouldn't think.
Well, again, as a starting point, I'm thinking Senatobia. If we just had something like that to get us started, or a couple of fields extra, from 6 fields to 10 fields. In my mind, this whole time, I've been thinking we could do this for $8 million. But I was basing that on what Senatobia's got. And that may not be enough for us. I don't know. But again, we're here tonight to kick all this around and just share these thoughts and ideas. And
We could cut out the baseball and find another location for baseball at a different point, start knocking out some of the other stuff in Renaissance Park.
Keep that way.
is that what you were thinking?
That's what I was sort of saying. How many acres does the ball field, as presented here, not
Sure.
including the hockey and
This area here,
that and all of
so
the?
this today is about 50 acres. And then this area is about 22 acres.
So we'd be pulling out the 9 acres for the horse arena.
Yeah, so I'm
and
sorry.
About an acre, maybe close to an acre where the hockey arena is.
Yeah, so that's about 40
Yep.
there.
40 and, sorry, what was the other
About
one?
20, 22 acres there.
So like
60,
65.
yeah, 60, 65 acres.
That's about minimum for what we would need for baseball.
Senatobia, for comparison, their acreage is about 30, and we were able to fit the
That
fields.
complex is 30 acres.
Yes, sir.
I just think our programs, every program's going to grow when we start bringing these improvements.
Oh,
So,
when we get
I
adequate
mean-
facilities, they will grow.
I mean, they're going to grow, and so that's going to be,
And our population will continue to grow because, we have a quality community and people want to move here and be part of it.
right, and they want their children to play sports here on, nice facilities, so I don't think if they see where the money's going and what it's being utilized for, that they'll just, hey, I don't want it in 4 years. I don't want to pay this extra 1% in 4 years. I mean, can't guarantee that, but I'm just saying, if you're seeing these improvements because this 1% tax did this and got it started, I think it would continue. But I mean, they still have the option to,
Yeah.
vote it out.
That's right.
So, it would be a proposal every 4 years that we need to get back in front and say, this is what we've done so far, this is where this money's been spent, and this is what our projected, new phases are, gonna entail.
To me, I feel like one of the things that needs to happen, regardless of what goes on in November, because we don't know that answer at all. If we have the opportunity to realistically purchase the Civic Center ball fields, we need to start meeting and acting on that.
That's right.
Because those fields cannot be improved in a significant way without us doing that. So, I mean, all of this on the side, like that may be something that needs to be put on the agenda sooner rather than later.
You're talking about at our existing facilities
Purchasing our.
Yeah, purchasing.
and making improvements after we,
Well, because I just think, you know, as we're looking at this, and if we want to work to improve the drainage, or I know the lights out there are not in great shape. Those type of things that need to be worked on now, like that we can't do them, or we have a lot of difficulty doing them. So that to me is something that needs to be kind of sewed up.
yeah, I mean, it goes deeper than that. Our concession stands out there are
Yeah.
literally not usable. Restrooms are the same restrooms that have been there for, what, 35, 40 years?
There's
Never
been a
have
lot
been
of, there's been
improved.
phenomenal volunteers.
Let me ask you a question. I think this might go on that.
Sure.
Could you show us a plan, Henry? I know this plan here is showing that we're gonna take everything down and start from nothing.
Uh-huh.
Could you show us a plan that's existing where that not, but with major improvements with a cost factor?
As far as basically the existing ball fields today, pretty much staying where they are.
With the
and-
exception, you know, with plugging in the arena and stuff.
Moving the arena or keeping
Well-
it where it is?
No, moving the arena.
Yes,
Some fields might have to be moved because of the arena.
Yeah.
But leaving as many fields in location, I guess, this is in line with what Ben talking about. Even if we might not do the big plan,
Right.
and we have to come back to the alternative, we'll have something to look at, say, okay, we're gonna use so many existing fields now, remove one, and then build new concession and bathrooms and all that stuff.
Just so there's no, like, the season's just
That's a
halt.
backup plan, I mean, that's a backup.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's certainly ways that you could improve the playing fields today. You know, lighting would be a big one. Some of the improvements would be hard to make without just starting over. And so, you know, to answer your question, yes, we can put together some information. and
The
exhibit.
question was, will it be money well spent?
In my
Professional
opinion, no.
Okay,
I think,
that's,
I think it is certainly a case of putting lipstick on a pig, you know, and if.
You're
it-
saying it's past the point of just kind of it need to be
It
completely
has,
redone?
it has run its life cycle and been loved to death, and, you know, a lot of great memories have been made out there. But to get the fields to the conditions that I feel like our community deserves, it's starting over.
okay, and then if you don't put the lipstick on the pig, then we had to shut down to do that. How long will we have to shut down? I know you said 2 years for that other project.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar undertaking, I would think, for about, to redo this, kind of what we're saying, is probably about a 2-year period. Same with that. So, I mean, and that's where the phasing would work out well, if you could, you know, financially, you know, everything worked out, building this while these are being used, and then once these are up and running, then do that project, and that way, no one ever misses a season.
I get what you're asking. So we would, while Project A is being constructed, we would continue to use the Civic Center ball fields as they stand.
Right. So what because he's saying that we pump some money in there, we just throwing money down the drain.
Yeah, get your bang for your buck.
Yeah, but we had to know,
Yeah,
had to ask the question.
right, no, I think it's a good question.
I think with that being the case, we need to determine pretty quickly if we want to continue in that location or go somewhere else. as far as-
Yeah, that's the big key right there.
I think that's the
Well,
most important decision we
Well,
need to do.
the decision, all that come in at the same time, Alderman Wicker, is you talking about, is potential to come in and purchase this property in the next few weeks. All that, correct?
Maybe we need to take a vote on that at some point here pretty quickly, if that's what we need to or not, but I mean, that's I think that's the most important decision. Do we want to continue negotiating to purchase that piece of property, or do we want to look at locating somewhere else? I mean, I don't know where else we would go, but I mean, okay, you need, how many acres do you think, Henry, to build some baseball fields?
60?
Well, to build a, just, 2 fourplexes like that, 8 fields, probably 25, 30 acres, to do that.
But one important part of purchasing the Civic Center is the access to Robertson Gin Road for Renaissance Park. I mean, y'all know right now, there's only one way in and out of there. We had tennis courts, basketball courts, splash pad. I mean, that'll be a choke point, definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I'd say just based on all the communities we worked in, especially, in throughout Mississippi, to have 125 contiguous acres together is pretty rare.
Might be worth noting too, if you did Project A and you built that road back out to 51, the disc golf, we've got in the budget at like 22 grand. And I think there's private folks in town that would be interested in helping get that going. So that's another thing for your list of things that you did with the money. The skate park expansion is accounted for. So that's another piece of the puzzle that's kind of coming together on that side of the park. And you can start to lay kind of the groundwork for marching that side of the park forward. I think there's grant opportunities for trails, greenways, start to kind of build that side of it a little bit.
And we saw this happen when we developed that very first Renaissance Park master plan. We saw those things happen with the dog park, which was privately funded. They just came here and said, hey, can we have some of this land? We said, yeah, it's in the master plan, and they funded it. Same thing happened with the skate park. Between private funding and a grant, it really didn't cost the city any money, but it was on the master plan. And once you've got a master plan that's approved, people get excited. And this would be one more step towards that. Like you say, the disc golf, we had a group of guys come here years ago wanting disc golf out there. And, like you say, that's a really inexpensive cost. The board could even fund that in an annual budget somewhere just to get another amenity out there. But once we really know what's coming, we know, and there aren't as many parks grants as people think there are. There's trails grants a lot. They're not baseball field grants that I've found. But we could find some of those grants to fill in gaps and lessen our load.
Absolutely.
We certainly don't just want to say, well, we're going to have the pennies for the parks, and that'll handle everything.
It's not.
But this would at least give us a backbone to really start planning from again.
Yeah.
Speaking of the old concept plan for Renaissance Park, it's been a while since I've seen it, but is there anything that was in that first concept plan that is not shown now?
Yeah, there was like an indoor, community center basketball, indoor basketball, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Big buildings. I think there was some soccer out in the fields up there.
Okay, well, we know we don't.
And then there were, I think, maybe 10 tennis courts. We had 6. But again, what wasn't there was all of this. Like, this was pretty much all destroyed. And it was tennis, it was the indoor facility, it was soccer, it was just cleared. And so if you were all to acquire this, it just opens up so many more opportunities to just, weave in so many more different amenities that truly there's something here for everyone, all ages, everyone.
But we know the master plans work. I mean, when we did that first one, lots of public meetings happened, and the people were excited about it, and we've used that plan for a long time. And that's how we got some of the trails in there and the amenities that are already there, was just starting with the plan. When do y'all want to come back with a little more direction after y'all have had time to digest it and think about it? I think it needs to be soon.
2 weeks? Is that
Okay.
another kind of recess meeting with
You
Like
say
the
2 weeks?
23rd?
Yeah, have a,
Would be the 23rd of May.
yeah, just kind of recess our 17th meeting, kind of like we did. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, we could do that Tuesday because it's not a planning meeting, so.
Yeah, we could just discuss this again on our regular scheduled meeting next Tuesday.
Or we can recess it to the next week. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, we will adjourn this one, for sure.
So let's do it on next meeting.
Just talk about it a little bit more at the next regular board meeting.
Maybe put it at the last item if it gets too long.
Y'all,
I will be out of the country at the next board meeting.
that's not gonna work.
So, I could Zoom in maybe, or that probably wouldn't work well, so.
Let's see,
Well, 2 weeks from tonight's the 23rd of May.
would you be back then?
I will be back.
Y'all try for a 23rd meeting? So on the next agenda for the 17th meeting, we'll put an agenda item to recess to the 23rd and come back in 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Okay? Has everybody had their say?
And the public want to say anything?
Yeah, well, I'm looking out there. So, all right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all so much.